Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're taking a shortcut to being truly well-informed on a topic that, well, it touches almost everyone's daily life. We're talking about our relationship with technology. That increasingly intense connection. You might feel that constant pull from your devices, maybe a sense of being perpetually online, or, I don't know, even like you've lost some control over your digital habits. If that sounds familiar, you are definitely not alone. We're diving deep into some really fascinating work that explores this modern dilemma, and it offers a surprisingly powerful solution: digital minimalism.
Indeed. And our source material for this deep dive, it's really a seminal work on living a more focused life with, well, less technology. It genuinely forces us to question that pervasive idea, that more technology inherently means more progress or more connection or even more happiness. What's particularly insightful here is how the author, Cal Newport, connects this very modern concept, digital minimalism, to classical philosophical insights. He draws wisdom from figures like Henry David Thoreau, who championed simplicity, 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 and Marcus Aurelius, who mused on how few things you have to do to live a satisfying and reverent life. These were people thinking about intentional living long before smartphones were even a glimmer in an engineer's eye.
Okay, so what does this all mean for you listening? Our mission today is to really unpack the core ideas behind digital minimalism. We want to explore why so many of us feel kind of hooked on our devices, and, most importantly, equip you with practical strategies to reclaim your time, your precious attention, and ultimately, your well-being in this noisy digital world. Get ready for some genuine insights, I think. Things that might just fundamentally change how you interact with your tech, moving from, just passively consuming to using it purposefully. Okay, let's unpack this a bit. We often think of smartphones as these, well, essential, always-on extensions of ourselves, almost like another limb, right? But it's fascinating to realize that that wasn't the original vision. Not at all. Think back to 2007. When Steve Jobs first unveiled the iPhone, he mostly presented it as a better iPod and a phone that dramatically improved call quality. In fact, he spent the first 8 minutes of his famous Macworld keynote showing off its media features. He even proudly called it the best iPod we've ever made. The initial appeal was really about elegance, integrating two devices into one, so you wouldn't have to carry a separate MP3 player.
Yeah, and what's truly illuminating here is how Jobs was actually quite dismissive at first of the idea that the iPhone would become this, general purpose mobile computer running third-party apps. He even expressed a very specific fear. He worried that some knucklehead programmer, his words, might write code that could crash the phone during a crucial 911 call.
Wow, really?
Yeah. And this isn't just like an interesting historical footnote. It highlights that the original device was designed with a much more limited scope, more utility focused. There was no app store, no constant social media notifications, no quick snapping photos for Instagram. None of the stuff that now drives us to compulsively glance at our phones, dozens of times a day, maybe more.
Yeah, easily.
So this reveals a crucial point: the pervasive, always-on nature of smartphones. That was an unexpected and unplanned evolution. It wasn't the grand design from day one. It sort of mutated into something no one, not even its creators, really saw coming.
And it wasn't just the iPhone, right? Think about early Facebook users. Back in 2004, for them, it was mostly just a directory for college students. A simple way to look up classmates, maybe connect with a few close friends. They certainly didn't foresee the average user today spending, was it around 2 hours a day on social media and related messaging. The sheer scale of engagement, how deeply it's integrated into our daily lives now, it's dramatically different from what anyone imagined back then. It's creators, early users, anyone. It really has been an unintended revolution, hasn't it?
Absolutely. And that organic, kind of unplanned growth, it's critical to understand because it means we as users, we largely stumbled into these habits. There wasn't much conscious intent there. It wasn't like we made a deliberate decision, okay, I'm going to dedicate hours a day to these platforms. No, it was gradual and almost imperceptible creep into our lives, driven by factors we weren't really aware of at the time.
Okay, so this leads us to something crucial and frankly a little alarming. The business model behind so many of these pervasive technologies. Bill Maher had that famous quip, right? That the tycoons of social media have to stop pretending that they're friendly nerd gods building a better world and admit they're just tobacco farmers in T-shirts selling an addictive product to children. He said, because, let's face it, checking your likes is the new smoking. That's a stark comparison.
It is stark.
But it really forces you to think about the intent, doesn't it? Is it genuine connection or, well, something else?
And that raises an extremely important question, maybe the most critical one in this deep dive. Is Silicon Valley primarily programming apps, or are they maybe more insidiously programming people? Tristan Harris, the former Google engineer turned whistleblower, he offered a pretty compelling answer in that 60 Minutes piece, Brain Hacking. He literally held up his smartphone and said, "This thing is a slot machine."
Right, I remember that.
He explained that every time you check your phone, you're essentially playing. You're pulling the lever to see, what did I get? What new notification? What new info? What hit of social validation? Harris asserts very clearly that technology is not neutral. Companies deliberately design their products using a sophisticated playbook of techniques to maximize your engagement. They want you to use it in particular ways for long periods because that's precisely how they make their money. That's the attention economy, basically.
It's quite unsettling when you frame it like that.
Right.
And Mara's analogy to the tobacco industry, specifically to Jeffrey Wiggin, the whistleblower who exposed how cigarettes were engineered to be more addictive, it becomes incredibly stark. As Mara put it so chillingly, Philip Morris just wanted your lungs. The App Store wants your soul. It speaks to the depth of it, the potential for manipulation. It feels like it goes beyond just physical harm.
And this concept, it's deeply rooted in psychology, specifically behavioral addiction. Adam Alter, he's an NYU marketing professor, wrote Irresistible. He defines addiction as, let me get this right, a condition in which a person engages in use of a substance or in a behavior for which the rewarding effects provide a compelling incentive to repeatedly pursue the behavior despite detrimental consequences.
Okay.
Now, tech addictions are generally seen as moderate compared to, say, chemical dependencies. You won't get severe physical withdrawal from quitting Facebook, but they're still undeniably harmful. They can cause anxiety, depression, social isolation. They impact your well-being, and they do it by exploiting fundamental human psychology, especially our drive for social approval, for connection. They use what are called intermittent variable reinforcement schedules.
Okay. That's a bit of a mouthful. Can you break that down? Sure. Intermittent variable reinforcement.
Sure. Think about those unpredictable likes, comments, notifications. They don't arrive on a fixed schedule, right? You never know exactly when that next little hit of validation or information will land, that unpredictability. That's precisely what makes them so compelling. It's the same mechanism in slot machines. You pull the lever, not knowing if you'll win, but the possibility keeps you pulling. Your brain is constantly seeking that next reward, even if it's just, as the source calls it, a bright ding of pseudo-pleasure that never really satisfies you deeply.
Right.
This makes us compulsively check, creates this powerful loop. And listen to this. Leah Pearlman, who actually helped develop Facebook's like button, she's so aware of its manipulative effects, she now hires someone else, a social media manager, to handle her own accounts to avoid its pull. And Sean Parker, Facebook's first president, he basically confirmed this design philosophy. He admitted it's a social validation feedback loop. You're exploiting a vulnerability in human psychology.
Yeah.
So this compulsive checking, it isn't just a character flaw on your part. It's the result, the highly profitable, incredibly sophisticated result of a deliberate business plan.
That really reframes the whole dynamic, doesn't it? It makes it less about individual willpower and more about wrestling with a system designed to keep us hooked. So if that's the core problem, this subtle, often unintended digital addiction, what's the solution? Well, the core idea of digital minimalism, as our sources explain it, is pretty simple, actually. It's adapting classical insights about living a satisfying, focused life. Insights that have been around for centuries, long before the internet. Think of Thoreau exclaiming, "Simplicity, simplicity, simplicity," in his quest for a deliberate life at Walden Pond. Or Marcus Aurelius asking, "You see how few things you have to do to live a satisfying and reverent life." Digital minimalism basically takes this ancient wisdom and applies it directly to our modern tech landscape. It's about being deliberate, selective, not just defaulting to every new digital tool or online trend that comes along.
Precisely. Digital minimalists, they ruthlessly reduce their time online, almost surgically, you might say. They focus on a very small number of high-value activities that genuinely align with their values, with what's important to them. Now, it's easy for us, living in this hyper-connected reality where constantly checking our phones feels, well, normal. It's easy to see this minimalist lifestyle as extreme. But the minimalists would argue that actually our current hyper-connected existence is the thing that's truly extreme. As the social critic Lawrence Scott put it so well, in the modern hyper-connected world, a moment can feel strangely flat if it exists solely in itself.
Mhm.
There's this constant pressure, maybe unconscious, to share, to document, to experience everything through a digital lens, which ironically can diminish the actual present moment, our
Yeah.
ability to just be in it.
That's a really powerful observation. It suggests our default mode has become so focused outward that we struggle to simply, well, be. Hashtag tag, the law of diminishing returns
Yeah.
applied to technology.
Yeah, and this makes a ton of sense. If we connect this to the bigger picture, it ties right into the law of diminishing return
Right.
from economics, right? This
Exactly.
principle basically says that investing more and more resources into something eventually yields less and less extra benefit. Imagine an assembly line making cars. Initially, adding more workers significantly boosts production.
But at some point, adding even more workers doesn't endlessly improve output. You run out of space, the conveyor belt hits its max speed, the benefits plateau, then maybe even decline because it gets inefficient.
Exactly the same with technology. If you initially use social media, say to keep up with a few close friends or share your creative work, you genuinely get some value from it. For instance, our sources mention a guy, Dave, a creative director. He used Instagram only to archive his personal art projects, like once a week, and followed just a few inspiring artists. He got significant benefits from that very intentional limited use. But at a certain point, consuming more online news or checking feeds more often, it doesn't make you more informed or more connected. It often just leads to information overload, more anxiety, a loss of deeper meaning. The value you get eventually plateaus. It even declines. Meanwhile, the negative consequences, psychological issues, anxiety, anger from online echo chambers, even just feeling superficial, they keep increasing. You hit this inflection point where the usefulness is just massively outweighed by the downsides, the negativity, the time cost, what you're not doing instead.
So it's not about being anti-technology then. It's about finding that sweet spot where tech truly serves you rather than demanding your constant attention. Okay, this brings us to a really unique and compelling point, something that gets right to the heart of what intentionality looks like in practice. Some communities, like the Amish, offer this powerful real-world example of highly intentional technology use. There's a common misconception they reject technology outright. That's not quite true. Instead, they operate under a strict ordnung, a set of rules and traditions that guides their approach. They carefully evaluate each new innovation based on a really clear principle. Does it genuinely enhance their community and their core values?
Hmm.
If it doesn't, they reject it. For instance, they might use modern diesel engines for farm equipment because it helps their livelihood without hurting the community. But they often avoid connecting to the public electricity grid in their homes because that could challenge their independence, their self-sufficiency.
It's not about being anti-progress. It's about being intensely purposeful, discerning. And what's truly fascinating here is that while the Amish have this more authoritarian ordnung, the Mennonites, who share similar values but allow for more personal responsibility in decision-making, they also demonstrate this powerful intentionality. One Mennonite woman, Laura, gives this great relatable example. She consciously chose not to own a smartphone. Why? Because she didn't trust herself to avoid distraction. She notes that the perceived small dollops of value she loses, like quickly looking up a restaurant review or getting GPS directions instantly, are vastly outweighed by the meaning and satisfaction she gets from being highly selective about her tools. She'd rather write down directions ahead of time or just ask a local for help than be tethered to a device she knows will pull her attention from more important things.
Yeah.
And this raises a really important question for all of us. Can we achieve that same level of intentionality without the communal pressure of an Amish or Mennonite community? The answer, as the source suggests, is a resounding yes, and it brings profound satisfaction precisely because you're taking deliberate charge, deciding what claims your time and attention. It's about building a framework for your values, not just conforming to what everyone else is doing.
That's actually a really liberating thought. That this kind of mindful tech use isn't just for a specific community, but it's a philosophy. It's accessible to anyone willing to make those conscious choices.
Yeah.
Okay, so now that we understand the problem and the philosophy of intentionality, the big question is, how do you actually start? How do you implement digital minimalism in your own life? Well, the foundational practice is something called the digital declutter. It's basically a 30-day break from what our sources call optional technologies.
Hmm.
And this first step is absolutely crucial. You define what those optional technologies are for you. It's more than just social media. It could be streaming services, certain apps you use mindlessly, maybe even just browsing the web without a purpose.
Right.
The core idea is to create a void, a temporary space where you can clearly see what value these technologies truly provide, or maybe don't provide, in your life.
And the benefits reported by people who actually do this break, they're
Yeah.
really striking and diverse. Many find that breaking from that constant online socializing helped them assess and even strengthen their real-world relationships. There's Anya, a Belarusian student. She found that stepping back from online interactions with international friends helped her, in her words, feel more invested in the time I spend with people in
Yeah.
person.
Mhm.
She noticed because they interacted less online, when they actually met up, they had this idea that we want to make the most of the experience. It made the real interaction more valuable. And Kushbu, a college sophomore, she put it even more simply. She said, I only lost touch with people I didn't need, or in some cases didn't even want, to be constantly in touch with.
Ah,
For this period of deliberate inconvenience, it can truly clarify who and what really matters in your social life.
yeah, it sounds like a forced reevaluation, which can be incredibly clarifying, I bet. And beyond relationships, many people rediscovered lost hobbies or neglected family time. Craig, a computer scientist, he excitedly reported visiting his local library for the first time in years. Found 7 interesting books just waiting for him.
Nice.
Terrell, a father of 3, became far more present with his sons at the playground, noticing small victories he'd previously missed while, habitually checking his phone. He even mentioned how weird it felt to be the only parent at the playground not looking down at a screen.
Wow. Yeah.
Brooke, a writer and mother, found her life far less rushed and distracted. She started playing piano again, even relearned how to sew. It sounds like it's about reclaiming not just time, but the real you that gets kind of buried under all the digital noise and that feeling of always needing to be on.
Absolutely. And after this intense 30-day break, the next critical step is reintroduction. This isn't about just snapping back to your old habits. No. Instead, it involves carefully deciding which technologies to bring back into your life, and more importantly, on what specific limited terms. It's about building alternative systems for connection, for information that genuinely serve your high-value goals.
Right.
For example, Alona, she's a digital advertiser. She set up a regular schedule for calling and texting friends. She accepted she'd missed some spontaneous stuff, but she saved significant mental energy from not being constantly on call. Abby, a Londoner, took a fairly drastic step. She removed the web browser from her phone entirely, bought an old-fashioned notebook to jot down ideas and look things up later. She realized she didn't need to know everything instantly. And Rebecca, 19 years old, she transformed her daily experience just by buying a watch, so she wouldn't check her phone for the time, which was a trigger for distraction.
Simple, but effective.
Exactly. These seemingly small optimizations, they yield major differences in daily lives. Contrast that with the average Facebook user spending, 50 plus minutes a day on the service? It's a huge shift.
So it's about being very surgical, like creating a custom operating system for your digital life instead of just accepting the default settings. That makes perfect sense. Okay, one of the most powerful and maybe often overlooked benefits of digital minimalism is reclaiming solitude. Now, this isn't necessarily about being physically alone in, a deserted place. It's more a mental state. We hear about Abraham Lincoln during the intense pressures of the Civil War, escaping the chaotic White House. He went to his quiet cottage at the Soldiers' Home for almost half the year. He would even occasionally sneak out without his cavalry escort, just to enjoy the quiet commute, despite the very real danger of assassination on that route. He clearly valued that time alone with his thoughts.
Yeah, and that raises the question, why did Lincoln go to such lengths? Well, it provided him crucial time and space to think, to grapple with immense decisions, like the Gettysburg Address. Solitude, as defined by Raymond Kethledge and Michael Irwin, it isn't about physical isolation. It's a subjective state in which your mind is free from input from other minds.
Okay.
You can find it in a crowded coffee shop, on a busy subway, or, like Lincoln showed, even with soldiers nearby. As long as your mind is left to grapple only with its own thoughts, without external stuff pulling at it, it's about resisting those inputs, focusing internally. Martin Luther King Jr., for example, supposedly found the courage and clarity for the Montgomery bus boycott during a moment of profound solitude at his kitchen table. That quiet reflection allowed him to define his path forward. It can lead to huge shifts.
For a long time, the academic world was kind of slow to recognize how important solitude is. They often overemphasize relationships as the main source of happiness. But Anthony Storr's 1988 book, Solitude, A Return to the Self, helped change that. Storr boldly argued that solitude can be just as important as intimate relationships for happiness, for productivity. He pointed to historical figures like Descartes, Newton, Virginia Woolf, people who led remarkable lives without extensive personal ties. He quoted Edward Gibbon, who said, "Conversation enriches the understanding, but solitude is the school of genius."
And Michael Harris, a Canadian social critic, in his own 2017 book, also called Solitude, he notes that new technologies actively undermine this crucial state, this being alone with your thoughts. The iPod, with those ubiquitous white earbuds, arguably started the trend of continuous distraction, making it normal to have a soundtrack to your whole day.
Yeah.
Then smartphones perfected it with the quick glance, that ability to instantly pull up any app at the slightest hint of boredom or discomfort. This makes it possible, he argues, to completely banish solitude from your life, because there's always an escape route, always something new to look at. And Harris points to three crucial benefits we lose when we lose solitude: new ideas, an understanding of the self, and closeness to others. When this vital mental space is constantly under attack, it really matters for our cognitive health, our emotional health.
And part of the challenge here is how dramatically we underestimate our screen time, isn't it?
Definitely.
Adam Alter's research highlights this perfectly. He guessed he checked his phone maybe 10 times a day for about an hour total. But then he downloaded an app, Moment, that tracks actual usage. The reality,
Yeah.
shocking. He was checking his phone 85 times a day for 5 to 9 hours.
Wow, that's a huge difference.
Huge. And this constant connectivity, it's profoundly affecting younger generations. Gene Twen's research on hijack, those born after 1995, the first generation to grow up with smartphones, it shows a steep mountain in anxiety, depression, suicide rates. And many parents, many experts, they link it directly to these round-the-clock digital habits, like obsessively following filtered lives online, constant social comparison.
So how can we actively cultivate solitude in this, always-on world? Well, the source suggests walking, akin to Thoreau's noble art. He wasn't just talking about physical exercise, he called it the enterprise and adventure of the day, a fantastic source of freedom from the clatter of civilization.
Right.
Walking, especially outdoors, especially without digital distraction, it allows your mind to really grapple with its own thoughts, free from external inputs. It's about taking those long, contemplative journeys, like Nietzsche on a mountain, letting ideas spark. Another key practice: writing letters to yourself in a journal.
Okay.
The act of writing, it provides what they call conceptual scaffolding, basically a framework to organize your thoughts. It pulls you away from digital distractions, forces a more deliberate internal dialogue. It fosters productive solitude. It's not just what you write, but the mental process of structuring your thoughts without outside noise.
That's a great way to put it. It makes the abstract idea of solitude feel very tangible, very achievable, even in our busy lives. #tag reclaiming conversation in a community.
Yeah.
Okay, so we are, as Aristotle famously said, social animals. Our brains, as neuroscience shows, are hardwired for rich social interaction.
Yeah.
They actually default to social cognition when we're not focused on a specific task. And this is where technology presents this profound paradox. It promises limitless connection, right, but often delivers something, well, far less substantial, sometimes superficial.
Yeah, studies by Holly Shakya and Nicholas Christakis, they really illuminate this paradox. They found that while some social media activities, like maybe targeted messaging, can modestly boost well-being, the core issue is that using social media tends to take people away from real-world socializing. And real-world socializing is massively more valuable. That small, fleeting boost you get from a like, it just can't compensate for the significant loss of actual face-to-face interaction. This often leads to increased loneliness among heavy social media users. It's counterintuitive, but true. Furthermore, digital tools can also subvert the offline communication that remains. Our analog brains basically can't easily tell the difference in importance between the person right in front of us and a new text notification popping up. Those incessant pings fracture our attention even when we're physically with others. It makes true presence really difficult.
Okay, so how do we shift from just connection to genuine conversation? From that superficial digital stuff to truly meaningful, maybe in-person interaction? Well, one powerful practice, sounds simple, is don't click like. Now, initially, the like button was designed for efficiency.
Yeah.
Right, to replace comments like, great, a cool pic.
Yeah, just a quick acknowledgement.
But it quickly evolved into what we talked about earlier, that digital slot machine.
Right.
It introduced this stream of unpredictable social approval, created an impossibly appealing impulse to compulsively check your accounts.
Yeah.
And of course, it gave platforms invaluable data on your preferences, fueling targeted ads.
Yep.
So the goal here is to consciously stop feeding that machine. Stop craving those fleeting hits of pseudo-pleasure. Dismantle a key pillar of the attention economy.
Another crucial strategy: Consolidate texting. Sherry Turkle, she's a prominent researcher on tech and relationships. She notes, phones have become woven into a fraught sense of obligation and friendship. We feel perpetually on call, like we have to respond instantly.
Yeah, that pressure is real.
So, by simply keeping your phone in do not disturb mode by default and checking texts on a predetermined schedule, maybe a few times a day at set intervals, you transform these pseudo-conversations into more asynchronous, logistical interactions. And this shift, counterintuitively, often motivates both parties to seek better interaction, to seek actual back-and-forth dialogue.
Okay, that's it.
Because the constant, low-quality digital chatter no longer gives the appearance of true closeness. It creates a void, and that void motivates deeper, more meaningful engagement. It basically clears the static so true conversation can emerge.
That's fascinating. Turning a perceived obligation into an opportunity for better connection. Okay, here's a powerful one. Sounds almost old-fashioned, but apparently very effective. Hold conversation office hours.
Oh, yes.
This addresses the phone phobia a lot of people have now, that anxiety about interrupting someone with an unsolicited call.
Totally.
Our source gives the example of an executive. He makes himself genuinely available for calls every day at 5:30 p.m. That's his time. This simple logistical hack apparently transformed his social life. When people write him with complex questions, he just replies, "I'd love to get into that. Call me at 5:30 any day you want."
It removes the friction.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It removes the social friction that prevents high-quality conversation. Steve Jobs famously did walking meetings for intense talks. The author himself expanded his university office hours to foster richer connections.
Setting clear boundaries for availability, it actually invites deeper, more focused interaction. And finally, maybe most importantly for building community, join something. Benjamin Franklin, right? Master socializer, community builder. He didn't wait for communities to just appear. He actively created them, like the Junto, that mutual improvement club. Or he joined existing ones like the Masons even before he officially retired.
Right.
This highlights that few things can replicate the benefits of connecting with your fellow citizens in a shared, purposeful context. Think about social fitness groups like F3 or CrossFit, or the growing popularity of board game cafes like Snakes and Lattes.
Yeah, those are great examples.
These activities enable what our source calls supercharged socializing, meaning intense, high-quality interactions. They often have higher intensity, shared rituals, a sense of collective identity. They create a really satisfying sense of belonging to a tribe that passive online connection just cannot replicate. It's about proactively seeking environments that facilitate rich, complex social interactions, rather than just passively relying on digital substitutes.
That's a great call to action. It's not just about disconnecting from the bad stuff, but actively reconnecting with what truly nourishes us. #, reclaiming high-quality leisure. Okay, this next section is all about cultivating leisure that genuinely re-energizes you, not the kind that drains you. It often means moving beyond passive entertainment, like endless binge-watching or mindless scrolling, which, as we've discussed, can frequently leave you feeling more tired and less satisfied than when you started. It's about a fundamental shift in what we even consider rest.
And the Orobai community, Financial Independence, offers some great insights here into what genuinely restorative leisure can look like. People like Pete Adeney, Mr. Money Mustache, and Liz Thames of Frugal Woods, they both achieved early financial independence. And they filled their newfound free time not with passive stuff, but with strenuous, active projects.
Right.
Pete, for instance, famously doesn't own a TV, doesn't subscribe to streaming. His leisure involves renovating his house, building out buildings. He even impulsively bought a rundown retail building just for the project of transforming it. He describes his satisfaction coming only from making stuff, solving problems and making improvements. Liz and her husband Nate, they moved to a 66-acre homestead. Their leisure includes constant maintenance, harvesting wood, clearing trails. This virtuous hobbies approach involves activities that seem like work, but they provide multiple layers of benefits: mental clarity, new skills, exercise, a tangible sense of accomplishment.
Yeah, this directly aligns with what the source calls the Bennett principle, named after Arnold Bennett,
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah,
The value you get from a pursuit is often proportional to the energy you invest.
exactly.
So instead of feeling more tired and listless after hours of idle screen tapping, active leisure, even though it seems like work, can be mentally freeing.
Yeah.
It offers exercise, teaches new skills, provides deep satisfaction. Liz Thames found this clearing trails on her property. She mentioned the problem-solving aspect, the immense satisfaction of using the path she cleared herself. Think about historical figures like Teddy Roosevelt, preaching the doctrine of the strenuous life, right? practicing jujitsu, skinny dipping, reading a book a day. He embodied this idea of active, energy-investing leisure that leaves you invigorated, not drained.
And a key element of high-quality leisure, particularly relevant today, is craft.
Well,
Gary Rogowski, he's a renowned furniture maker. He argues that people have the need to put their hands on tools and to make things. We need this in order to feel whole.
interesting.
Our brains, he explains, evolved to interact with the physical world, manipulate it. When we spend too much time on screens, we create this mismatch between our equipment and our experience. Engaging in craft, like Matthew Crawford, the philosopher who quit a think tank to repair motorcycles, allows us to live truer to our primal potential. It provides that tangible accomplishment, that direct connection to the physical world, that deep satisfaction digital interactions often lack.
So this leads to a really practical, actionable idea. Fix or build something every week. You don't have to become Mr. Money Mustache and buy a building, right?
Right, not necessarily.
But committing to simple repair or learning or building projects, that taps into this satisfying, skill-based leisure. It could be anything. Fixing a leaky faucet, learning basic carpentry, building a small shelf, tending a garden. And if you're wondering, how do I learn this stuff? The answer is actually remarkably easy now. YouTube. It's an amazing resource for step-by-step lessons on almost any project imaginable.
And what's truly interesting here is that the internet, despite being the source of so much distraction, is also fueling a kind of leisure renaissance. The Mouse Book Club, for example. They deliver physical books for an analog reading experience, but they rely on tech to connect subscribers for real-world book club meetings. So this highlights that high-quality leisure doesn't necessarily mean abandoning all technology. The internet can be a powerful tool for good here. It helps people find communities for niche interests, access obscure information needed for quality pursuits, whether it's finding local debating groups or watching tutorials on building a shed. So you can strategically leverage technology to enhance, not diminish, your high-quality leisure. It's about choosing to use the tool rather than letting the tool use you.
Okay, so to make this happen, to avoid just defaulting back to passive digital consumption, our source suggests developing a seasonal and weekly leisure plan. Now, this isn't about removing spontaneity or becoming overly rigid.
No, not at all.
Rather, it helps you proactively schedule and fight for more leisure opportunities that genuinely re-energize you. By seeing maybe a light schedule on a Thursday afternoon, you might proactively decide, okay, I'll end work early for a hike or dedicate an hour to that craft project.
Being intentional.
Exactly. The core argument is doing nothing is overrated. While chilling out has its place, it often devolves into low-quality stuff like mindless phone swiping.
Investing energy into something hard but worthwhile almost always returns much richer rewards.
All right, the attention economy. As we've explored, it thrives on our compulsive use. Companies like Google and Facebook, now vastly more valuable than even huge oil companies like ExxonMobil. They make their money primarily by extracting eyeball minutes, your attention, your time.
That's the currency.
Facebook, for instance, pressures people to use it like a foundational technology, like something everyone just has to use. It'd be weird not to.
Right.
This creates an atmosphere of vagueness. Users often sign in with no particular purpose, just browsing, which makes them easier targets for attention engineers to hook them into endless scrolling without a clear goal in mind.
But understanding this fragile attention economics, as the source calls it, reveals a really powerful strategy for you, the individual user. And that strategy is critical use. Facebook itself, in a rare moment of, well, introspection, published an article asking, is spending time on social media bad for us? And their conclusion, it really comes down to how you use the technology. Now, this seemingly innocuous statement, it's precisely what scares them the most. Because if you, the user, start to think critically about how you use their products, if you evaluate them in utilitarian terms, asking, what specific value does this feature provide for my goals, their revenue would plummet. By an order of magnitude, the source suggests, this critical approach fundamentally shifts the power from the platform back to you, the user. You become a discerning consumer of digital tools, not just a passive target.
Okay, so how do you actively join this attention resistance and reclaim that power? First, the advice is pretty clear.
Yeah.
Delete social media from your phone.
Big one.
This immediately removes that slot machine action of swiping down to refresh, that unpredictable hit. It also eliminates those alarm red notification badges.
Yeah.
Those are mobile-only innovations specifically designed to pull you back in, create urgency.
Right.
You don't necessarily have to quit the services entirely. Just quit accessing them constantly on the go.
Many people who do this find their Facebook use drops dramatically, maybe just 1 or 2 checks a week, using it for specific high-value purposes on a web browser like checking specific groups, events, not just aimlessly scrolling the feed. Next, a strategy that kind of harks back to earlier computing days. Turn your devices into single-purpose computers. Fred Stutzman, he was frustrated by distractions while writing his dissertation, so he actually created Freedom, an app that blocks distracting websites and applications.
Oh, yeah, I've heard of that.
The idea is to move away from the general-purpose mindset of modern computers and phones. That mindset encourages rapid, unproductive switching between tasks, check email, then social media, then news, then back to work for a minute.
Yeah, the constant context switching.
Exactly. Instead, this approach helps bring you back closer to the ideal of single-purpose computing. Like an early Apple II user maybe used their computer for sales charts during the week, family finances on the weekend. But not both, plus games, plus news all at once. This intentional blocking forces you to approach digital tools with more focus. Makes them tools for specific tasks, not just bottomless pits of distraction.
And finally, a very practical approach. Use social media like a professional. Jennifer Guigel, a social media expert advising financial firms, is a perfect example. They don't use it for entertainment, not for dog memes.
Utilitarian.
They curate their Instagram, check it infrequently for specific accounts related to their interests. They log on to Facebook maybe once every 4 days. For close friends and family, less than an hour a week compared to the average 350 minutes.
Big difference.
Huge. Their main focus is Twitter, where they maintain separate, highly curated accounts. Academic interests, personal interests, following high-quality thinkers, leveraging it strictly for professional networking.
It's about extracting clear utilitarian value, not getting sucked into an endless attention-draining feed. And this concept, this professional utilitarian use, it extends beautifully to news consumption through something called slow media. Instead of the compulsive click cycle, which the source likens to snacking on Doritos, always craving more but never really satisfied.
Good analogy.
This approach advocates focusing on highest quality sources, like vetted reporting in established newspapers, long-form journalism, limiting your attention to world-class writers, and crucially, actively seeking out the best arguments against your preferred position to foster deeper, more nuanced understanding. It's about genuine engagement, not just finding stuff that confirms what you already think.
Right. Avoiding the echo chamber.
Exactly. It also suggests ritualizing news consumption, setting specific times, specific locations, maybe reading a physical newspaper, or downloaded articles offline to avoid those online rabbit holes. This intentionality ensures you are truly informed, not just agitated or overwhelmed by the constant noise.
Okay, and for the truly bold, a strategy that might sound extreme at first, dumb down your smartphone.
Yeah, this one takes commitment.
Paul, a relatively young professional mentioned in the source, took this leap. Traded his smartphone for a simple Doro phone easy. A flip phone, no apps, no web access.
Wow.
He reported significantly less anxiety, increased productivity at work, felt less distracted around his family. Daniel Clough, a tech executive, found switching to a basic Nokia 130 made him more present, felt his mind feels less cluttered. Companies like Lightphone are even built entirely around this attention resistance philosophy. Their manifesto literally states your clock symbol, their money symbol. Your time equals their money. This really requires a leap of faith, doesn't it? Our smartphones feel like a safety net against being lost, bored, disconnected.
They do.
But for many who try it, the benefits reclaiming their attention, their mental clarity, far outweigh the perceived costs. It fosters this profound sense of liberation.
So as we conclude this deep dive, it's pretty clear that digital minimalism isn't just, a set of rules, a rigid list of restrictions. It's really a profound philosophy about cultivating a life worth living, a life of intention, of purpose. It's an ongoing process, adjustment, conscious choice. Recognizing that our brains are, frankly, still catching up to these mystifyingly different electronic communication innovations that really kicked off with Samuel Morse's telegraph, we still struggle, even today, to fully grasp the long-term consequences of these tools. We often find ourselves scrambling to make sense of their impact after they've already reshaped our lives.
And here's where it becomes critically clear, I think. The journey through digital minimalism.
Yeah.
It's not about completely abandoning technology. It's not about retreating from the modern world. Instead, it's about asking Thoreau's fundamental question. To what end? Why are we using this tool? What purpose does it serve? When we truly understand the profound human cost of unintentional, compulsive digital consumption, the lost solitude, the fractured conversations, the superficial leisure, then we can start leveraging these powerful innovations to our advantage, to enhance our lives, not just fuel the bottom line of some faceless attention economy company.
So what does this all mean for you? The ultimate goal, really, is to move beyond Andrew Sullivan's poignant lament, I used to be a human being, when faced with overwhelming technology. By thoughtfully applying these principles of digital minimalism, by making conscious choices about how you use your tools instead of just defaulting to why everyone else uses them, you can, with confidence, begin to say,
Because of technology, used intentionally and wisely, I'm a better human being than I ever was before. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. We truly hope this exploration empowers you to reclaim your focus, reconnect with what truly matters, and live a richer, more intentional life.